Is the defective product doing well?
My sister Michelle calls her daughter, Maddie, who she abandoned 18 years ago, a defective product. Even though she knew Maddie only had 6 months to live, she ran away with my husband. Today, by chance, I ran into the two of them, but instead of apologizing, they threw insults at Maddie. As if Maddie didn't exist, my ex-husband laughed hysterically by her side. But then Maddie appeared. Michelle and Harold looked as if they'd seen a ghost. There's a reason why it's inconvenient for these two that Maddie is alive. We know their secret. And now, it's time for them to receive their own terminal diagnosis. My name is Julie Smith, and I just turned 50 this month. Next month, my daughter Maddie's wedding is coming up. It's overwhelming to think that Maddie, who was once so frail and small, is now getting married. I'm thrilled, but I can't deny feeling a bit lonely. As I look back on everything, I can't help but tear up.
Mom, I'm worried about you. I don't think I can get married.
It's pathetic that my daughter is worrying about me. Maybe it's my age, but I've been so emotional lately. At the wedding, Maddie plans to read a letter of gratitude, and I know I'll be bawling for sure. I've tried asking her to skip that part of the event, but she refuses to budge.
No way. I want to stand in front of everyone and tell them how grateful I am for my amazing mom.
Maddie isn't my biological daughter. She's Michelle's child, abandoned and left with me. We've lived as mother and daughter ever since, and I believe we share a bond even stronger than that of a biological parent and child. 18 years ago, while I was preparing dinner one evening, the doorbell rang. There stood Michelle, whom I hadn't seen in 5 years since our mother's funeral, with a pale, frail-looking girl by her side.
It's been a while. Sorry to show up like this, but could we stay here for a bit? My husband kicked us out, and I have nowhere else to go.
Michelle's plea sounded desperate, but something felt off. She hadn't contacted me at all since our mother's funeral, and now she was suddenly here. I didn't even know she was married or had a child. And now, she was asking to stay here for a while. I got married 2 years ago and live here with my husband. I can't make this decision alone. I tried to stay calm, but Michelle raised her voice.
This is my family home too. I let you inherit it because you wanted it so badly.
In my memory, Michelle had said, I don't need the house. I just want the money. Her selfishness had always frustrated me, but this time I was more concerned about Maddie, the girl she'd brought with her. Just then, my husband Harold came home. Before I could explain, Michelle started speaking in a near tearful voice.
Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle, her sister. I'm so sorry to barge in like this. My husband did something awful, and I was hoping we could stay here for a while, at least until I find a job.
Harold, though surprised, quickly responded with kindness.
That sounds tough. Of course. Stay as long as you need. We all need a hand sometimes.
Harold even suggested she work at his family's business.
My family runs a company. If you'd like, I can talk to my dad and get you a job there right away. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you so much. This really helps.
Michelle said with a bright smile, keeping her gaze fixed on Harold as she continued the conversation. Harold's family business was a family-run company where his father was the president and his mother the executive vice president. At the moment, Harold was a department head, so he likely had some flexibility. Knowing Michelle's obsession with money, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Her eyes lit up when she learned Harold was next in line to become president. At the same time, I couldn't stop worrying about Maddie. She looked so pale and frail that I couldn't just ignore her. Maddie, who is 5 years old, looked even younger. She was quiet and would only respond with a small yes when asked something. According to Michelle, Maddie had been born with a weak constitution. I could have turned Michelle away, but I couldn't say no because of Maddie. For now, I'm worried about Maddie's health, so I'm okay with you staying for a while, but only until you find a new place, I told Michelle firmly. She looked a bit annoyed but didn't argue too much, perhaps because Harold was there.
Of course, I'll do my best for Maddie's sake.
That night, I couldn't sleep as I kept thinking about Maddie's face. According to Michelle, her husband had taken up with a new woman and kicked her and Maddie out. How unfortunate for Maddie to be caught up in the mess of her parents. At the very least, I wanted to make her smile while she was staying here. Even though I had only met her that day, I couldn't stop worrying about Maddie. Michelle started working at Harold's company, and every morning they'd leave together in his car and return together at night. During the day, Maddie spent time with me, and she gradually opened up and started smiling. She began calling me Julie, and I couldn't help but find her adorable as she followed me around. Still, I was concerned about Maddie's health. Knowing Michelle, I suspected she hadn't been providing proper meals, so I tried various things, but Maddie seemed to have a poor appetite and couldn't eat much. Not only that, but even a short outing would leave her exhausted. I suggested to Michelle that she take Maddie to the doctor, but she brushed it off entirely.
I already told you Maddie's frail. She'll get better if she rests. Unlike you, a stay-at-home mom, I have work to do.
Then she threw even harsher words at me.
Don't act like you're her mother just because you're looking after her a bit. You've always been so good at pretending to be a saint.
Michelle was always like this. When things didn't go her way, she'd attack and hurt others. It was exhausting, so I usually avoided further arguments with her.
Michelle's right, Julie. You're being overbearing.
With Harold siding with her, Michelle looked satisfied. She shot me a triumphant glance. But the next day, Maddie came down with a high fever. It was probably just a cold, but I knew Michelle wouldn't take her to the doctor. So I took Maddie to the pediatrician I'd been seeing since I was a child. The doctor, a close friend of my late father, was someone I trusted completely. After an initial examination, tests began quickly, and I felt a growing anxiety that this might be more than just a cold. A few days later, the test results came back. Maddie was given a prognosis of 6 months to live. That night, Michelle and Harold returned home after midnight. When I told Michelle the diagnosis, her response was unbelievable.
Why did you do something unnecessary? I haven't even gotten her a life insurance policy yet.
Without thinking, I slapped Michelle across the face. When our father had passed away from illness, Michelle had told our mother,
Why didn't you take out a bigger life insurance policy?
This was the same sentiment as back then. Holding her cheek where I had slapped her, Michelle continued without a hint of remorse.
There you go again, playing the saint. She's beyond saving anyway. This is just Maddie's fate.
However, the doctor had said that with early detection and immediate treatment, complete remission wasn't impossible, and there were increasing cases of such outcomes. But Michelle had no intention of letting Maddie receive treatment.
Do you have any idea how much that would cost? You're just a stay-at-home mom. You can't afford it. Don't tell me you plan on leeching off Harold for it.
Harold, showing no interest, quickly went off to take a bath. Do these two even have hearts? There was a life that might be saved right in front of them, yet they acted like it was someone else's problem. At that moment, I made up my mind. Fine, I'll sell this house and use the money for Maddie's treatment.
What? Don't make decisions on your own. This is my family home too.
You said you didn't need the house and chose cash instead, didn't you? I can call our uncles who were there to confirm it. Michelle fell silent, but I pressed on with the unease I had been feeling. Michelle, did you already know about Maddie's illness?
Of course not. I just found out now.
You don't seem surprised or sad. Even if it meant selling the house, you should be happy if it could save Maddie.
Maddie's always been frail, so it's not that surprising to me. And if you're selling the house, I have a right to some of the money too. I'm just saying that we should prioritize people with a future over a child who doesn't have one.
What an outrageous thing to say. I knew Michelle was obsessed with money, but I hadn't realized it was this bad. Her fixation on money started after our father passed away. With the family breadwinner gone, our standard of living naturally changed. Michelle threw a tantrum when she was the only one among her friends who couldn't go to the same private high school. She blamed our father, told our mother to get a job, and demanded that I drop out of college to work. But the truth was, it wasn't about money. Michelle simply didn't have the grades to get into that school. She played the victim, claiming she was the only one who had to sacrifice, and used it as a reason to demand special treatment. Our mother had saved our father's life insurance money for our futures, but when she passed away, Michelle took the bank book and disappeared. Shouldn't you inform Maddie's father about this too? At my words, Michelle suddenly raised her voice.
Shut up. This is between me and Maddie, so stay out of it.
Maybe she didn't want to meet her ex-husband, who had left her for another woman, but this wasn't the time for such stubbornness. Or maybe I was just being meddlesome. Michelle turned red in the face and stormed out of the living room. Moments later, Harold, fresh out of the shower, stormed in and confronted me.
Are you serious about selling the house? You were against it when I suggested it.
That's because you wanted a luxury car, but if selling the house can save Maddie's life, I'll gladly do it. He clearly didn't like my tone. Harold, like Michelle, showed his displeasure and retreated to his room. I'd have to sit down with both of them and talk this through tomorrow. But it turned out there was no need. The next morning, I found a completed divorce filing on the living room table. Michelle was nowhere to be seen. Harold and Michelle's belongings were gone too, and neither of their phones was reachable. I was convinced they had run off together. Watching Harold and Michelle grow closer had given me a bad feeling. Harold, who loved attention and showing off, and Michelle, who was obsessed with money and status, were a perfect match. But I never thought they'd abandon Maddie. They'd just learned about her illness. What do they think her life is worth? Harold is no better. I had miscarried 6 months ago, and I would never forget what Harold said to me in my grief.
How are you going to make up for this? My dad promised to hand over the company presidency once I had an heir.
Harold had been a kind and genuine man when I met him, But ever since his father hinted at retiring, Harold became obsessed with the presidency and started putting on airs. Selling the house to buy a luxury car was just one example. I no longer expected either of them to do anything for Maddie, but they would have to take responsibility. Since neither of them was reachable, I called Harold's mother. Without beating around the bush, I told her about their likely elopement and the fact that they had left Maddie behind.
Both of them are off today. I haven't been told anything. Surely, Julie, you're just overthinking things. There's no way they've run off together.
But the next moment, she seemed to realize the truth.
But isn't Michelle's child seriously ill, leaving a sick child behind? I'm worried about you, Julie.
Her words seemed supportive, but I had only informed Harold and Michelle about Maddie's illness late last night. If she hadn't been told anything, how did she already know? Sensing that Harold's mother was also in on it, I said only this and quickly ended the call. I will be seeking alimony from both of them.
If I find out anything, I'll contact you right away, Julie.
Although Harold's mother had said that, it was easy to imagine that no call would ever come. This woman was a mother, yet she only cared about her own son and couldn't care less about someone else's child. Maybe Michelle had planned to leave Maddie with me from the start. That's why she had shown up at my door despite our strained relationship. And then she'd conveniently met Harold, the next in line company president. I was at a loss for how to explain this situation to young Maddie. Even so, as she endured her treatment with her tiny body, I spoke to her as gently as I could. Maddie, let's face this together, okay? Don't worry, I'll protect you. Maddie, with a curious look on her face, smiled faintly and nodded. No matter what, I would protect her. And I would never forgive those two. One peaceful afternoon, I was working at the cafe where I was employed. This cafe, located in a small town, was known for its carefully selected and roasted coffee beans in dishes made with organic vegetables. During lunch hours, it was packed, and I was kept on my toes. When the wave of customers finally subsided, I heard a familiar voice from behind me.
Hey, is that you, sis?
I turned around to find Michelle and Harold standing there.
It is. It's really you, sis.
Hey, long time no see.
I quickly composed my expression, but I felt a surge of heat in my chest. I couldn't believe their audacity to act so casual, as if nothing had ever happened.
Hey, since we're here, why don't we have lunch together? We're regulars, so we can ask the manager to let you take a break.
I'm on my break too, so it works out perfectly. To avoid these two loud and vulgar people causing a scene, I led them to a private party room.
Wow, I didn't know this place had a room like this. It's like a VIP lounge. It's perfect for us.
Yeah, we should use this from now on.
Without offering any apologies or explanations, the two launched into a lively conversation, saying something utterly unbelievable.
How's that defective product doing?
Next to Michelle, Harold burst out laughing.
Come on. It's been 18 years. That 6-month life expectancy passed a long time ago. So how's she doing? Is a bit much.
My stomach churned with rage, but I kept my face calm, striving to maintain composure. Seeing me remain silent, Harold and Michelle became even bolder.
By the way, we got married. My dad was dragging his feet on stepping down as president. But 3 years ago, he passed away. So now I'm the president, and Michelle is the president's wife. Our dream finally came true.
He's amazing. In just 3 years, he increased revenue tenfold.
My dad's methods were outdated. With my natural business sense and Michelle's innovative ideas, it was bound to happen.
3 years ago, Harold's father passed away, and Harold took over as president of their health-related company. Before that, his father had run the company steadily and conservatively, but Harold and Michelle hit it big with a new product, and the company experienced rapid growth. Their bragging was relentless.
Right now, we're working on a new product that could make or break the company. Once it succeeds, we're planning to expand to New York. It's a $30 million project after all.
We even have investors lined up, so success is pretty much guaranteed. I'm glad we could see you before heading to New York.
Like a Last Supper, huh?
As their laughter echoed loudly, the door to the party room opened.
Mom, sorry I'm late.
It's okay, Maddie. I just went on breaks.
Wait, Maddie. That Maddie, you're still alive.
You have legs, right?
Lowering her long lashes, Maddie nodded softly, speaking quietly.
Yes.
The two who had assumed Maddie was no longer alive turned pale. What's wrong with you two? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Well, it's just, Maddie was only supposed to have 6 months to live.
She beat her illness. She fully recovered years ago, and now, as you can see, she's grown into a beautiful young woman. Don't you think she turned out lovely? Even if it's biased for me to say, Maddie is a slender, graceful beauty.
Yeah, she's unrecognizable.
She looks like a model.
Since that day, Maddie had fought hard through her treatments and miraculously recovered. I stayed with her at the hospital every single day, watching over her. Selling the house to cover her medical expenses turned out to be the best decision. Her recovery was so miraculous that even the doctor was amazed. It was worth selling the house for her treatment. I responded in a calm tone.
Yeah, that's good.
Michelle's lips twitched and her eyes darted around nervously. She said it was good, but both Harold and Michelle's reactions seemed odd. They should have been overjoyed to see Maddie again, yet they were awkward, avoiding her gaze. It almost felt as though they wished Maddie was still ill.
Isn't it possible that she's still unwell? There's always a chance of a relapse, isn't there?
Michelle hesitantly added to Harold's words.
Yeah, she's so quiet. Are you sure she's okay? Maybe she's not fully recovered after all.
Maddie had barely spoken a word until now. But at that moment, her demeanor suddenly changed, and she spoke in a clear voice.
It's now 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Harold and Michelle looked confused. At that moment, the door opened, and a man stepped into the room.
Huh? Michael?
Harold exclaimed in surprise.
What are you doing here?
Michelle looked equally puzzled. The man who appeared was Michael Johnson, a department head at the company Harold's business had partnered with for new projects.
Why, you ask? Because Michael is my fiancé.
Maddie stated calmly. Those words froze Harold and Michelle in place. The man who had appeared as their business partner was now revealed to be the fiancé of the daughter they had abandoned 18 years ago due to her illness.
You're joking, right? This has to be some kind of coincidence.
Harold couldn't hide his panic.
Yeah, Maddie, you must be exaggerating.
Michelle forced a laugh, trying to cover her unease. But Maddie fixed her gaze on them and delivered a cutting remark.
Did you think I wouldn't get my revenge?
With Maddie's calm declaration, the atmosphere in the cafe shifted completely. The smug confidence drained from Harold and Michelle's faces, replaced by visible anxiety. The silence was broken by Michael's low voice.
18 years ago, I hear you abandoned my fiancée after learning she had only 6 months to live.
Harold and Michelle's eyes widened momentarily before they quickly forced smiles to mask their shock.
That's a misunderstanding.
Michelle stammered, trying to explain.
Yes, we were young back then, and the situation was complicated.
Harold chimed in, but his words stumbled. Michael ignored their excuses and continued speaking with a calm demeanor.
I'm here today under orders from the president, effective immediately. All investments and support for your project are being terminated.
Wait a minute, Michael.
Harold leaned forward, raising his voice.
No matter how close you are to the president, mixing personal matters with business like this is unacceptable.
That's right. This is about business, isn't it?
Michelle pleaded desperately. Michael, however, remained composed and spoke again.
Is it though? I've heard your company's successful health supplement became a hit because of the touching backstory. A product born from the regret of being unable to save a daughter given 6 months to live. That story gained traction online and boosted sales, didn't it?
If I'm alive, doesn't that make your story a lie?
This was why Harold and Michelle had turned pale at Maddie's appearance. Michelle opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. Instead, Harold, his voice trembling, said,
This is all just a coincidence. Maddie has nothing to do with it.
His words lacked conviction.
A coincidence, you say?
Michael narrowed his eyes.
If that's the claim you're making, so be it. However, regarding the president's decision, we'll proceed with the necessary measures.
What do you mean by measures?
Harold asked frantically. At that moment, Michelle pulled out her smartphone and began operating it with shaking hands. Her face quickly froze.
What's wrong?
Harold asked, and Michelle showed him the screen with trembling hands. Displayed on the official website of Michael's company was a notice clearly stating, "Termination of business partnership."
No way.
This is reality. Given the circumstances, it's only natural for us to protect our company's reputation.
Wait. If this happens, our new product's release plan will be ruined.
Harold's voice rose almost to a shout as he begged. His company had already heavily promoted the upcoming product online, riding the wave of their previous success. The new product was highly anticipated, building on the momentum of their previous hit. However, the termination of the partnership at this critical juncture could deliver a fatal blow, causing them to lose the trust of the market.
Please, Michael, let me meet with the president. I'm sure we can work this out.
Beside Harold, Michelle turned her ire on Maddie.
You're trying to destroy us like this. You got close to Michael just to use him for revenge, didn't you?
That's right. Michael, you're being used by Maddie. Wake up.
Maddie looked down at them with cold eyes and muttered,
It's your own past that's cornering you now.
At that moment, the cafe door opened again, and a man stepped inside. Harold reflexively looked up at him, and his face lit up as he shouted,
Carter, this is all a misunderstanding. If you'll just hear us out.
Harold's desperate plea was abruptly cut off by Michelle's trembling voice.
You.
Michelle's face turned ashen, unable to hide her shock. Carter, the president, quietly gazed at Michelle. Then, in a cold voice, he said,
It's been a while, Michelle.
At that moment, the faint smile on Maddie's face revealed its meaning. Carter was Michelle's ex-husband and Maddie's biological father. Carter was famously private, with no photos of him even on the company website. Harold had met him once, but Michelle never had.
What's going on here?
He's my dad.
Harold's face contorted with shock at her words. Carter began explaining the events of the past.
Michelle here was having an affair with one of my subordinates. I was going to take custody of Maddie, but you ran off with her and dumped her on Julie for the sake of child support.
That's not true. I didn't.
Michelle tried to deny it, but Carter's account was factual. 18 years ago, Maddie often told me stories about her father. I wanted to help her meet him, but all we knew was his name. At 5 years old, Maddie didn't even remember their address. One day, while watching a TV commercial, Maddie shouted,
That's my dad's company.
From there, I contacted the company and managed to arrange a meeting between Maddie and Carter. But it was just in time. At the time, Carter was about to leave the company to start his own business. If we had been 2 days later, it would have been too late. Carter's voice was ice cold.
The decision to terminate the partnership stands.
Please, Carter. Our company's future depends on this.
Harold pleaded desperately.
That's right. I'm sorry for what happened back then, but you've seen Maddie now, so you must be satisfied.
Michelle begged as well, but Carter's gaze remained frigid.
When I reunited with Maddie, it was in a hospital bed. Can you even comprehend the despair I felt when I was told she had only 6 months to live?
But Maddie survived, so isn't that enough?
That's only because Julie gave up everything for Maddie's sake. And yet, you used her supposed death as a marketing ploy? What were you thinking?
Harold and Michelle fell silent, but then Michelle suddenly blurted out,
You're wrong. Julie was grieving after losing her child to a miscarriage, and she begged me to let her raise Maddie, even if just for 6 months. When I refused, she forcefully took Maddie and disappeared. To me, it was like Maddie was gone forever.
Yes, that's it. Michelle and I, both wounded, supported each other through everything.
Their cornered desperation was evident in their transparent lies. Maddie looked at me with a hint of exasperation.
Mom, can you believe what they're saying?
They seemed to enjoy their delusions. But Michelle raised her voice at Maddie.
Stop calling her mom. She's just your aunt.
At that moment, Michelle had already decided to abandon Harold. She even started casting longing glances at Carter.
Carter, now that the 3 of us are together again, why don't we start over? Maddie needs her mother.
Michelle suddenly changed her tune, approaching Carter with a syrupy voice. Maddie cut her off.
She's my real mom. She's married to my dad after all.
What? You married your sister's ex-husband? Are you insane?
Michelle snapped at me, but I calmly returned her words. And what about you marrying my ex-husband? After Maddie's reunion with Carter 18 years ago and her miraculous recovery, I had planned to step away. However, Carter, who was busy with his new business, asked me to stay on as Maddie's nanny, even offering to pay me a salary. Maddie also strongly wished for me to stay, and I agreed without hesitation, grateful to remain by her side. I had never seen Carter as a romantic partner, but Maddie turned out to be our matchmaker. When Maddie graduated from high school, Carter proposed, but I couldn't take the step at the time. Now that Maddie was getting married, I finally made my decision. Michelle, her face flushed with anger, lunged at me.
Don't mess with me. Maddie and Carter are mine. Give them back.
Michelle, in a frenzy, began thrashing around, but Carter silenced her coldly.
Your company has 6 months left to live. Everything will end with the launch of your new product.
Mom risked everything to save me, but no one's going to save you.
Harold turned his anger toward Michelle.
This is all your fault. And now you're cozying up to your ex-husband? What's wrong with you?
This happened because you're incompetent. You promised to make me the president's wife and led me on.
The two began hurling insults at each other, escalating into a disgraceful argument. Realizing their predicament, they turned back to Carter to beg.
Please, we're begging you. If this continues, all of our employees will be left stranded.
Don't worry about them. I've arranged new positions for all of them. Your father, the previous president, was well loved and respected, but it seems dissatisfaction with your leadership has caused many to leave. None of them are clinging to your company now.
Harold's shoulders slumped in defeat. With the cancellation of the new project and the loss of his employees, there was no hope of recovery. Desperate, he redirected his pleas toward me.
Julie, please. My mother is elderly, and she was always kind to you. I'm truly sorry for everything. I'll pay the alimony properly. Please, just speak to Carter for me. I'm begging you.
Your mother knew everything from the beginning. She let her guard down, and that's how I figured it out. So no, I'm not concerned about what happens to her. Besides, as for alimony, your father already took care of that.
What?
Harold stammered, dumbfounded. When divorcing Harold, I decided to at least bid farewell to his father, who had always been kind to me. During my miscarriage and hospitalization, his father was the only one who visited daily, offering words of comfort. Without prying into the reasons for our divorce, he assured me Harold would pay alimony. Perhaps he understood his son's unreliable nature. About 3 years ago, I received a call from his father's lawyer. When I visited, his father was already gravely ill. He apologized for how Harold and his wife had treated me, blaming himself for prioritizing work over family. On top of that, he gave me an extraordinarily generous settlement. He also expressed his disappointment in Harold and his wife, stating that he had no intention of leaving them anything.
What? There's no inheritance left?
When Harold's father passed, his will, as disclosed by the lawyer, stipulated that the details of his estate remain private for 3 years. Harold and his mother must have been counting on it.
This was all you're doing, wasn't it? A scheme for revenge.
Harold, in a frenzy, directed his anger at us. But it was Maddie who coldly dismissed him.
That's exactly what I said. I planned everything. Dad just helped me. I'll never forgive you. Not for abandoning me, but for making Mom suffer.
Smiling, I followed Maddie's lead and added, "Have you ever heard the phrase, 'You reap what you sow'?" The two collapsed, having lost everything. The cafe door closed softly, and we left the scene behind. Rumors quickly spread, and Harold's company's reputation plummeted. All the employees resigned, every partnership was terminated, and the company didn't last even a month, let alone 6 months, before going bankrupt. All that remained was an enormous amount of debt. Since then, they've reportedly returned to the cafe multiple times. What they didn't know was that I had asked my friend, the cafe owner, to let me work as a waitress there just for that day, knowing Harold and Michelle were regulars. When they learned the truth, they left in despair. Harold never had a knack for business, and at his age, no man would take on Michelle. The two are stuck together, cooperating out of necessity despite their animosity. Unable to pay their massive debts, they tried to disappear into the night, but no matter where they went, they were always found. Unbeknownst to them, it was Harold's own mother who was leaking their whereabouts to Carter. Carter received updates from Harold's mother and passed their whereabouts to the debt collectors. Carter proposed to Harold's mother that he would guarantee her a minimal standard of living in exchange for reporting Harold and Michelle's whereabouts each time, and she readily agreed. Feigning concern, she constantly inquired about Harold's location and dutifully passed the information on to Carter. Carter never forgave them. Unaware of his mother's betrayal, Harold would tearfully call her every time they were found. He'll likely learn the truth only after his mother's passing. Finally, the day of Maddie's wedding arrived. I cried at the sight of her in her wedding dress, and again during the heartfelt speeches from her friends, realizing how loved Maddie was. Supported by Carter, I barely managed to stand. In her words of gratitude, Maddie shared the full story of our journey together, holding nothing back. As she recounted our past, memories flooded back, and I couldn't hold back my tears. Maddie, too, choked up multiple times as she read aloud.
Thank you for finding me and becoming my mom.
By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. From now on, Maddie will have Michael to protect her. Throughout the ceremony, Michael gazed at Maddie with gentle and warm eyes. As Carter's trusted right hand and someone who loves Maddie deeply, Michael gives me no reason to worry. That day, I felt like the happiest mother in the world. As Maddie's mother, I'll continue to watch over her happiness forever.